You're tuning into the Journey to Your Best Self podcast, where we explore the past holistic well-being, personal growth, and living a fulfilling life. Each episode, we bring you insightful conversations, practical tools, and inspiring stories to help you integrate your mind, body, and spirit on your journey to becoming your best self. Let's dive in and embark on this journey together. And welcome back to the Journey to Your Best Self podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian O'Neill, joined by my sister and co-host, clinical hypnotherapist, certified life coach, and yoga instructor, Tara O'Neill. Today, we're absolutely thrilled to welcome Katherine Norland, a truly multifaceted guest with insights that bridge creativity, resilience, and personal growth. Katherine is not only a talented actress and writer, but also an inspirational speaker who dedicates her life to helping others discover their inner strength and purpose. Through her own experience in the entertainment industry and personal challenges, Katherine has developed a unique perspective on perseverance, faith, and finding light even in the darkest times. Without any further ado, Katherine, welcome aboard.
Hi, thank you, Brian and Tara. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, and you really solidified and, validated that little intro, because when we had talked about, pre-show recording, what you had wanted to get into, or if there are any changes and anything that you had wanted to discuss, you really were just, you just gave reflexively the selfless answer of just, however I can help your audience and however I can help people. So your service and that, part of you, your new calling, definitely rings authentic. So appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Katherine. It's a pleasure. Your energy is delightful and refreshing. And we also, Brian and I were talking earlier about, how we have the pleasure of having these guests that not only, talk the talk, but walk the walk. And so you certainly are doing the work, and thank you for that. So we're so excited to get into this because to me, personal growth work is fun. It can be fun, right? It doesn't have to be so heavy. Sure, we have those heavy times, but yeah, so where do you want to start? I mean, what are you excited about for right now in your life?
I'm excited about standing up for me. And I think a lot of us don't do that. We suffer in silence. We don't want to ruffle any feathers. We want to keep pleasing the people around us. And it's not fun to make tough decisions. So I'm excited that I made a very tough decision this week, and I had angst over it, anxiety. I was upset. I was crying. But saying no to things, even though they're good things, really makes space to make room for the God things.
Sorry about that.
So that's what I'm excited about. Is although it was hard for me to let go of a project I'd been working on for like 10 years, I realize because I have that time free now, I can devote it to really be more of service and develop more of the programs and books that I really want to help people with.
So you said there was, this situation that you had to make a decision, and you were stressing over, causing a lot of angst. How did the Katherine, say, 2024 handle it differently than, say, the Katherine 1994 may have? What did you do differently that you might not have done back then?
Well, back then, I oddly enough that you said 1994, I was a teenager, barely in my teens, and I literally an hour ago found a letter I wrote in 1994.
Wow.
So the serendipity of all of that
Isn't
is
it?
I could tell from this letter. Back then, I would have blamed these people for my problems instead of taking accountability that I took on too much without regard to everything else I had on my plate and how long that would take. So I would have probably blamed someone else for my miserable life and not having time to do what I want.
Wow, perfect answer.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you talk about the power of serendipity or synchronicity or things being kismet, in that you do seem like someone that surrenders, and do you see that you get rewarded by life by doing that?
Oh my gosh. It's all about yielding, really. When we kick against the goads, when we fight against the plans God has for us because we think we know better or we want it to look a certain way, my goodness, that is a painful, long road of missteps and disappointments. And no matter how hard you push it, it never works out to be as good as if you just lay back and say, okay, what do you got? What do you got in mind for me? Because it always ends up better than you can imagine when you do that.
So
Yeah, absolutely.
so we talked about two attributes, characteristics, that you've developed: accepting responsibility and then the also yielding. When you talked about how you may have blamed, say 15, 20 years ago, the people that you were involved with, rather than look at yourself and what you may have done differently, that kind of accepting responsibility, has that been a process that you've been working on? Is that just come with time? Is that something that you have to continuously, consciously make an effort to do? How is that, maturity, that complexity that you've gained in yourself? Has it been something that you really had to try to do, or has it just come with age and time and naturally develop?
Nothing comes with age, I don't think. I know a lot of elderly fools. So I think it's like a daily choice. Age doesn't necessarily make you better. I've had some people in my life that prove that. And accepting is, I think it's one of the hardest things we do. I did a whole hour-long teaching on this on my YouTube channel. And it's accepting things. It's not fun because part of us feels like if we accept it, that means we want it and we want it to be this way. And people think, well, if I just accept it, then that means I'm saying yes to this. And really, we have to get out of that mindset. We're not saying yes to it. We're just acknowledging that that is what is the situation right now. So I remember years ago when my son Timothy, who's now 16, when he was first diagnosed with all these special needs, and I was depressed and crying and upset, and I was really grieving. It felt like there was this death of what he would never become. Like you have a parent and you're like your firstborn son, you're imagining this wonderful life he's going to have and all the things he's going to do and be able to experience. And then you get these diagnoses and you're like, well, there goes everything I ever thought having a child would be. And there's this grieving process. And I started to really delve into self development when he was 2 or 3, maybe. And I took these classes, and one of them was actually on acceptance. And they were like, you have to accept things. And I'm like, no, I'm never going to accept this diagnosis. I serve a God and I know he does miracles, and I was just going to pray and believe that God was going to do this miracle and take these special needs away or make him be able to walk and talk like they said he never would. And I'm just going to pray for that. But by not accepting the reality of what the diagnosis is, because I thought if I accepted it, that meant I didn't have faith. That meant that I had weak faith, because sometimes believers in God think that if you believe enough, if you have enough faith, then that's going to get rid of all the terrible things in life. But that's just not how it is. Even the Bible says the rain falls on the just and the unjust alike. So we're all going to go through stuff. And by me fighting that diagnosis and not accepting it and just praying that a miracle would happen, I wasn't as proactive right away to get him certain help that he needed. Because as of right now, I have seen God do some miracles. They told me he would never walk or talk, and he's doing both. So I've seen that miracle of faith through prayer. However, there's some stuff that, I don't know if he probably, unless a miracle happens, probably never going to drive a car, maybe not have a job. He still can't tie his shoes or button shirts, and he's 16. So there's things that I may be still a little disappointed in with cognitive things, but it doesn't take away from any joy that he's brought me or any love that he's brought me. If anything, it's taught me so much. And that when you don't accept the way things are, you actually can't make it better. You make it worse because you're not living in current reality.
Yeah, that's so profound and very inspirational and beautiful. I'm glad to hear like that you've brought so much joy and love um, to that experience, because I do think, I'm sure that your followers are inspired, and you've helped a lot of people. Can we connect the worth part of it, right? And so, we do have, I've had these moments where it's like, well, you know, why me? It's and there's a worth component to it. It's like why me, but at the same time, like, did I do something wrong? Like, am I bad? Like, do I deserve this? And it's like our cognitive mind's like, well, maybe I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have eaten that extra sandwich or whatever. Like, it's weird stuff that you don't eat, like nothing to do with what's actually happening. So how we try to figure it out with our mind, and then like the worth, and can you speak, how do we even teach about worth and that we're all worthy?
Yeah. Well, that is that is the topic of my book, You Are Worthy. So, this is really about how to stop building other people's dreams and sabotaging your own so you can step into your calling and live your purpose with confidence. And so much of my early adult life was spent being a people pleaser and not feeling worthy to go after my own dreams. So, there was a point in my life where I was this little gal in Minnesota with no self-esteem, depressed, suicidal, and I hear a voice one day telling me to move to LA and be an actor. And I talk about self-worth. I was hospitalized twice for suicide attempts, and I didn't think I had anything of value to offer. I didn't think I was worth the dirt I was made out of. I thought I was ugly and fat and disgusting. I thought no one would ever want to be my friend. And now I'm here and I made it through a bunch of stuff. And now I'm like in Bible college. And I think, you know what? I just want to help people. I just want to grow up someday and maybe be a pastor or something. And at the time, I was doing a church service at the local county jail every Sunday for the 5 years for the inmates there with a team of people, and going to Bible college. And I just felt this voice saying I should move to LA and be an actor. And at first I thought, well, that's just crazy. That's not even God talking. That must be the other guy. And so I just kind of denied it at first, but then all these signs started coming to me that that's what I should do. But because I was suffering the self-worth and the worthiness issues, it was a disaster when I moved here because I would go to auditions and I'm up for a role competing with all these women who were like supermodels, and they were, the homecoming queens, and they were all told, oh, you should move to LA and be an actor or a model. So here I am in my big baggy Minnesota sweater and coveralls sitting in an audition with these women who are like size 2, and I'm this like big farm girl, and um it was so intimidating. And I remember this one audition in particular where I'm sitting next to these gals and they were talking about being a perfect 10, and I was like, I just wanted to make some friends or get in on it. I'm like, oh, I'm a perfect 10. And then I like go size 10. And like, I thought that was a good size. And they just laughed at me and they started scoffing. And they were like, when people talk about a perfect 10, they definitely don't mean size 10. And they were talking about being size 0. I had never even heard of size 0. Like, the smallest friend I had in high school was a size 4. So I thought they were making it up. I thought there's no such thing as size 0. What are they talking about? But that was just like one of many instances where I was made to feel like I wasn't good enough. And I talk about this a lot in the You Are Worthy book, these different audition experiences I had. Where casting directors would, and directors and producers, they'd tell me, oh, you got to lose weight. They'd grab my underarms and shake it. They'd hit me in the stomach. I got fired for being too fat. I got fired for having a hairy face. I got like all these things. And, oh, you're too pale. Your eyes don't match. Or I had one director after an audition put his hand on my shoulder and exclaimed, geez, you're like a linebacker. So I already felt pretty low. And then getting all this feedback from directors and producers and casting directors just made me feel like I was never going to make it. I did not feel worthy. I didn't deserve it. But here's the thing that changed for me, and what put me over the edge to realize my worth is I started reading the Bible. I started reading the scriptures, and I started reading what God had to say about me. And I thought to myself, well, if you have a cell phone, you don't really know much about the cell phone or how it works. You look in the owner's manual. And I was like, well, if God made me, I'm going to look in the owner's manual and see what he says about me, and not what all these casting directors say about me. And there came a point, which I talk about in the You Are Worthy book, where I was able to separate who I am from the earth suit I'm living in. And I realized it's not the same thing. If I have droopy jowls or saddlebags or acne, that has no determination of who I am or what my worth is. And so it was so freeing, because in Hollywood, they look at actors and models like products. So I just was able to separate myself when I got told, you're not a good actor. We don't like your voice. You're too old. Your face looks good, but your neck looks old, and all the different things they would say. I realized, like, if I was like a bottle of ketchup, maybe I'm like the old fashioned bottle that's like made out of glass with the label right set up. And then there's other ketchup bottles that are the plastic upside down label, the modern ones. And depending on the story that was being told in the script, it wasn't a value judgment on my talent or my worth. It's just that my product was not needed to best represent the role in this film. Doesn't mean I should move back home and I'm terrible and all this. And when you start to like say, oh, this isn't really me, this is an earth suit I live in. And we learn in the book of Jeremiah that that God knew us before he put us in our mother's womb. So that tells us we were something else before we were dropped into this vessel that we currently reside in. So we're like this, we're living in a house on earth, and some people's houses are big and some are small. And, sometimes in the script is calling for a brown house or a tan house, or, a mansion. And when there comes a role where they need a double wide trailer, then I'll get my chance, So I started making it not about me, and like, my package just doesn't fit the look they're going for this film. And it was so freeing, because I stopped beating myself up, kicking myself on the way home. I should have said that line better. I should have been more rehearsed. I shouldn't have laughed at that. It has nothing to do with me. And I realized the roles God had for me are there, and no one can take them from me. So it's just very freeing when you realize, if you yield, coming back to yielding, you don't have that attachment. And when you don't have that attachment, ironically enough, you actually start booking more roles, because when you walk into the room desperate and needy and having to prove that you're worthy and you deserve it, they smell that desperation from miles away, and then you don't get the job.
Yeah, that's what I was going to follow up with. Did you notice that when you started to embody this new Catherine, approach, and the yielding and the patience, did the callback start increasing? Did the auditions start getting better feedback from the directors? Did the roles start coming in?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, everything in life got better. Friendships, relationships, totally. I mean, it's all connected. When you know who you are and you love who you are, see, people don't realize that we set the precedence for how other people respond to us and how they treat us. And when we walk around acting like everything is cool, but we secretly hate ourselves, we're secretly doing body checks and squeezing ourselves and getting mad that we don't have that six pack anymore. We think we're covering that up. We've got our masks on and everything's cool, everything's confident. It's like the narcissists of the world that they put on this act that they're so confident, but really it's hiding insecurity, and you can't hide insecurity. No matter how much plastic surgery you get, you can't hide insecurity. So accepting
Yeah,
yourself, loving yourself, yielding. Nothing, no amount of plastic surgery can make you as gorgeous as confidence does.
absolutely. Yeah, I love that. And I don't know if the listeners can and the audience can feel it, but I can feel it energetically. You know, you feel somebody, you can close your eyes, and if they're next to you, you can feel their level of authenticity, their level of how they feel about themselves, their worth, their confidence, right? So, you know, I think that you hit the nail on the head. I love when you said the earth suit. That's amazing. That's so, you know, sometimes I'll say like avatar, right? It's just my avatar, like whoever, like who, I'm not sure who Tara is half the time. It's like, whatever, I'm not sure what's going on. So like to have
Yep.
that detachment, I'm not sure I'm quite where you are, but I do find it freeing. So like you know, you feel your energy feels so free, right? And it's like that when you let go of that resistance, like things can start to come online. So
Yeah.
aside from reading the book, which we encourage all of our audience to do, where can people start when they have this comparisonitis and this competition that's
Mm-hmm.
not healthy, that's hurting them, right? That is
Mm-hmm.
constantly, you know, they're replaying the what they did in their heads. They're trying to figure out how they could do better or be better,
Mm-hmm.
and that the constant, to me, it's just constant, right? It doesn't, you don't get a whole lot of slow time or time to sit back and let things come to you. What can we do to start to shift that?
Mm-hmm. Well, a lot of times when we're comparing ourselves to others, we make this mistake of comparing the worst thing we don't like about ourselves to the best thing in someone else.
Oh,
So, like if you have thinning hair, you're always going to look at those girls that have big, thick, luscious hair. And you're not even looking at their downside. You only see that one thing. And you don't know if they are a big hot mess. I talk about this in the You Are Worthy book, where like if you were going to sell real estate, you do things to give it curb appeal. So when people pull up, they see, ooh, this place looks pristine. You plant flowers up the walkway. Maybe you get some new shingles so it looks good from Google Earth. Maybe you put a fresh coat of paint on, scrape off the old stuff. Well, we try to do that same thing. We're like taking the Ozempic and we're working out. And we're trying to pack on some lean muscle mass so we will have curve appeal. But if you do a deep dive on the property and the one that has the best curb appeal, if inside it's being eaten away by rats chewing on the hardwire, it's got termites, it's on a cracked foundation, it's not going to value for what you think it will. And when we do all the outward things, like I have somebody that I know that's had basically every cosmetic surgery ever invented, and she hates herself and she's
yeah.
always putting herself down. I talk about this in one of the chapters of you can't you can't do outward fixes to fix an inside problem. So if you haven't taken care of what's in here, why you don't feel good, no amount of change is going to do anything for you. So comparison, that's the killer. When you compare, you're not content no matter what you've got. When seeing through an envy lens, it's always what you've not. So
Mm.
why do that? You're not meant to be like anyone else, right? That's why we all have our own unique fingerprints. You're not supposed to be a carbon copy. If you're supposed to be a carbon copy, God would have made you a twin. But if you're
Yeah,
not,
absolutely.
right?
I love that.
Even
Right.
twins aren't.
That uniqueness, we need to celebrate. And also yeah, one of the practices that I would do is, because yes, it seems to be like something I wouldn't be good at, be like, oh my gosh, like they always like cook the perfect meal and everything looks in place, everything tastes great, but you know, I don't cook, so how can I say like, oh, you know, I suck at it, right? So we do see the things that we want to be good at oftentimes, like you said, you know,
Yeah.
you know, people that are insecure about one thing, they'll find in their external environment that will seem to be highlighted out at all of the best back at them. So yeah, it's the universe is almost saying like, look at this, and then also spin it and maybe like, oh, I love that about that person. They're really good at
Mhm.
A, B, or C. But I love that. Yeah, you reminded me to, like, think of the uniqueness that each person has, and that's a great practice in and of itself, right? We're not supposed to be like everybody else. And I do think that the energy in LA often is that they're dying inside because they might be looking something external. And not to say that there isn't so much wonderful like, talent and great things that come out of it, but it does probably tend to attract a certain type of person that might be looking for something outside of themselves.
Yeah, people who are searching for validation. That's actors and writers can be very, very needy and very they get hurt easily because they're so wanting to be accepted. It's, not everyone is like that, but it's a big through line that certainly runs through here, and so does comparison. I remember at one audition, my printer was broken, so I wasn't able to print out the sides for the script. And there was a gal sitting next to me, and she had the script. We're both going out for the same role, and she wasn't up for like 5 or 6 more people, and I was up next. So I was like, "Oh, hey, I'm up next. Can I go just quick refresh my mind and look at your script real quick before I go in?" She gave me this snarly look on her face, and she folded her script up and put it in her purse. And I was like, there's
That sounds like
such
a scene from a movie.
there's such this fear of competition, of somebody's going to get it over on you. And if you're not like, what if it's for me, it's for me, I'm going to get it. Nothing, you could do a better job and I could screw up and I will still get it if it's for me. I've been in those auditions where you think you did the best job you have ever done and you don't even get a call back. And then I've been in somewhere everything went wrong. I felt like I just screwed everything up, and they're like, "You got the job." I'm like, "Did you see the audition? Were you awake? Like, what?" I
That's funny.
don't.
Great.
So it's
Oh,
so
wow.
true. Some things you have no control over, and we don't have control over any outcomes. We give it our best, and then most actors, unfortunately, on the way home are shitting all over themselves. "I should have done this. Oh, I should have done that. Oh, I should have done this." And you can't
Yeah.
turn back. You can't turn back and redo it.
Do you
One
try
of my
to
least
make it a
favorite is the should is should. But before Brian goes into there, I like to ask our guests what one book is that's been really inspirational that they could share. It doesn't have to be relevant for now, but at some point through your journey, that you recommend everyone read once in their lifetime.
Well, I mean, I would have to say the Bible, because that's been the biggest change I have found.
Yeah.
I read probably a self-help book every week, but I've never found any of that compared to that. If I think of another one, I'll let you know
Yeah,
as we're
sure.
talking.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, for
everything.
sure. You talked about the competition, the other actresses, things like that. People that casting that were judgmental. Got a lot of competition. Kind of grind through different teens and young ladies and onto the next. Do you find that then and now you make a conscious effort to surround yourself with people that see through the veneer of the kind of LA, New York scene of curve and curb appeal and not aren't looking inward? Is it something that you do as far as agent, manager, friends, directors that you like to work with, or just people in your life? Do you make a conscious effort to seek out? And how can you recognize them before you even do so, right? So you don't have to do the work of trying to turn somebody to kind of see the world like you do. What are some of the tells to find your tribe?
Yeah. Well, I think sometimes just being around people and observing what they do is, I mean, they could talk a good game and you could buy into it, but do they follow up with their actions? Does it really equate to what they're saying? Because when people show you who they are, you have to believe them. And you watch how they treat others, you watch how they respond to you, you watch if they keep their word. And as a reforming people pleaser, I would say we need to stop making excuses for people. When people are jerks and when people are treating you badly, I've been guilty many times of like, "You know what? They probably didn't mean it. They're probably just having a bad day. it's been really hard for them. And making like, it's one thing to, yes, feel that way. And a scripture tells us love believes the best. And you want to believe the best, that they don't mean to be it. But some people do mean it. And they do mean to be jerks. And they do mean to be mean. So you have to see if that's a pattern. They've said they were going to do something 6 times and they haven't. They've been late to your house 5 times. It becomes a pattern in people. And I think as you get older, you start to value yourself more. You start to value your time more. And you start to say, you know what? Back when I was needy and desperate and didn't know my worth, I needed to have like 50 friends because if some weren't available. I couldn't be alone with myself. And I think the best person that you could be around is yourself. And when you start to love yourself, you don't need to be surrounded by people all the time. You're content with your relationship. You can have great conversations with yourself. Sometimes I'm sitting in here in my office and I'm reading a funny poem that I wrote from a book that I wrote a few years ago. And I'm like, that's funny. That's cool that I came up with that, because I'm like enjoying my own company, which sounds weird and maybe sounds egotistical, but when you come from a background of hating yourself for as many years as I did, to be able to enjoy yourself and not put up with bad relationships like I used to, that's saying a lot. And I think if people can first make friends with themselves, they're going to have no problem at all making friends with the right people. And when you start treating yourself in a way where you love yourself and you honor yourself and you put yourself in a good position and you're not, stepping on yourself, then you're going to find people that will treat you like you treat yourself. So for the number of years I was a doormat to myself, then I couldn't figure out, why was everyone treating me like a doormat? Why is everybody wiping their muddy shoes on me? It's because I was doing it to myself first. So I think the number one way to find your tribe is to first be your tribe.
That's awesome. While you were going through that and reflecting about being a people pleaser, and I love your analogies too. Thinking about like Redfin or realestate.com or Zillow or something, and how these houses look so pristine, and then you drive by and you're like, what? That didn't look like it did in the picture. Or you open the door up and, like you said, there's mold on the sheetrock or something. Social
Yeah.
media and the exponential growth of the internet, how does that affect the Katherine Norland that didn't have all these defenses and ways of dealing with wanting to be a people pleaser? Like, can you imagine, you said you had a teenage child. Is it harder for them now, boys and girls growing up, with the wanting to just send a picture of themselves or a couple of sentences or a couple of dance moves or a couple of quotes out there, or what, is it harder for them? Is it more dangerous for them to really not get the likes and not get the validation and then go into a dark place now? Are you worried about that in the 2020s?
We see that happening every day for sure. If you don't know who you are and you don't quite figure out what your worth and value is, and then you go on and you see all these people with their perfectly curated lives, it's easy to think you're not enough. I went through that trap and I didn't even have social media. I went through that trap just by looking at pictures in the magazines, and I wanted to be like Cindy Crawford. And I talk about this in the book. I wanted to look like her. And so I bought her workout plan and I tried to do her diet plan. But it didn't matter. I was never going to be Cindy Crawford. I was never going to grow 5 inches and be a supermodel, because that's not the purpose and it's not what I'm here for. And I think when people are feeling down on themselves, they need to get clear on, like, what is your purpose? When we watch movies, we resonate with the underdog. We resonate with the people who they don't have it all together, but they're fighting for what they want. We resonate with the Rockies and, the people that maybe you think, oh, they don't have a chance. And when we watch movies, we're not like rooting for the perfect 10 billionaire who has it all. We're like, oh, please. We resonate with people like us. So I think you're going to find it freeing for those, I go live sometimes, and sometimes I make videos. I have over 800 self-help videos on my YouTube channel just under my name, Katherine Norland. Sometimes I'm in my pajamas. I haven't combed my hair. I certainly don't have makeup on. I put videos out where I have like blueberries stuck in my teeth because I just want to share something of value with people, and I don't feel like I have to be perfectly coiffed. And like, I will not Photoshop anything. Like, I won't Photoshop my photos. Maybe once or twice I've ever used a filter just to see what it would look like. I just present me, and if you don't like me because of superficial things, that's ridiculous. I understand certain movie roles, you have to look a certain way or whatever, but like, I was presented a role recently, and the director said, "Well, you've to lose 20 pounds or you can't have this part." And the old me would have been freaking out. I would have tried to go on some crash diet. I would have been like, "Oh my gosh, how am I going to?" And I read the script, and I was like, "Well, I don't see anything in the script that says she has to be a certain size. It's not like she's like been starved in prison or is anorexic." So I just told the director, I said, "Well, if you want someone 20 pounds lighter, then hire someone 20 pounds lighter. I'm not, I'm not going to do that." So I'm at a place now where I can say no to the things that aren't for me. So, I think it's very freeing not to have to fit in a mold. People, when you are free to be yourself, it allows others free to be themselves. So come out, warts and all, show yourself, show your talent, show your joy, show what you're good at, express what you need to. There's so many people who have powerful messages inside them, but they're like, "Oh, but I don't look good on camera." Who cares? There's so
All
many
right,
talented people.
because you've talked a couple times about finding your dream, pursuing your dream, right? Your calling, you might say. You had a moment where you had gotten a message or a sign, but a lot of people that we work with at youroneself.com and that we speak to on the podcast Journey to Your Best Self are a step behind that, a level of they're kind of wayward, stuck, passionless, in a place of stagnation. So how can we help them light the spark or take that first
Yep.
step? Or if they don't even know where to go, they don't have the pull to Hollywood, or they don't see the World Series and they're like, yes, I have to be a coach, or an athlete, or something. If they're older than that and they're already established, and they don't think that there's anything else for them to dream about and pursue. How do we light that spark?
Yeah, I think you have to spend some time with yourself to find what the spark is, and you have to start getting to know yourself and asking yourself questions. If you met someone and you wanted to get to know them better, and you would take them out to coffee and you'd ask them, like, "What do you love? Like, what are your joys? Like, what brings you joy? What's your favorite thing to do on a Friday night or a Wednesday afternoon? What brought you joy as a kid?" What you would pull all this stuff out of them. Well, we seem to have forgotten how to do that with ourselves. And I would really start journaling. If you're not sure, or just start asking yourself some questions. If you don't like to journal, like, record yourself. Ask yourself a bunch of questions as if this is someone you're trying to be friends with or someone you're going on a date with. When you really get to know yourself, what brings you joy, what the things are that you like, what lights you up, remember memories from when you felt like so empowered and you were loving your life, or even if it's third grade and getting that home run, whatever it is, when you can recall those times and you get to know yourself on a deeper level, you're going to find out you are not the person you think you are, and you're definitely not the person you are accusing yourself of being. You're an amazing person. And when you get to know yourself and your likes and your dislikes, you can then start to shape and mold yourself into living a life that brings you joy, that makes you want to get out of bed in the morning. And sometimes it's going to be hard, like I had to do this week, saying no to things that were on my dream list, that were on my bucket list at one time, but no longer fit the trajectory of where I'm feeling called or where I'm feeling the joy now. So if you can start scheduling your life around those things that bring joy and not drudgery, I think you're going to find your path and your purpose.
I
Excellent.
love that so much. Can you talk to, you've written several books, bestsellers. That seems to have been a really helpful tool for you in your personal growth.
Yeah.
And for me, guilty as charged, it is take I it's taken me a while to get into the routine of journaling, but I finally got it. It took me many, many years. Can you give some tips of, like, I mean, I tried them all. I like slept with it by my bed. I forced myself to do minutes. And then finally I actually started to like it. So then that's when I was like, oh, okay. But can you give some tips of, like, you mentioned recording. So if people are struggling with journaling, do you suggest prompts? Do you suggest just spewing anything, like a class, a certain time of day? Can you give us a couple pointers? Like, how do we get ourselves to get it out there onto paper or on a recording?
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't think there's a one size fits all thing because everyone is so different. So I wouldn't give up on it if you tried many times and it didn't work. Try the different times of day. Try when right before bed when you're super sleepy. Honestly, I find the most productive time is first thing in the morning when you're still kind of coming out of that dream state. Also, sometimes I have different journals for different things. I have like a money journal where I write down my money blocks. Okay, I didn't want to pay this much for this, or that's pointing out scarcity. So even sometimes different areas of your life, maybe you have one thing you don't want to journal about your love life, but maybe you want to journal about your money struggle. Maybe you don't know if God is real. Maybe you're journaling about, God, are you real? Sometimes I have one as a prayer journal, and I write down my prayers, and I'm getting mad at God, or I'm thanking him, or I think start with whatever is that you feel called to, whatever feels like it's a block in life. That's what we need. And even if you don't have brilliant things come to you, even if the entire first few times you do it, you're just writing, this is dumb, this is stupid, what's the point of this, I don't get this is a waste of time, what is this ever going to do for me? Even that is productive because you're getting some of the first layers off. And once you can get the first layer, it's going to get to the second layer, and all these things that you're like, this is so dumb, this is pointless. And then underneath you're like, but in some ways this is kind of making me explore things I didn't want to explore. And I think a lot of people will throw in the towel too soon before they get their breakthrough. Because I feel like some of the biggest breakthroughs I've had in my life and my understanding of who I am and what I'm supposed to do in this world and my relationship with God have come through really asking myself those deep questions and writing them down. It's so easy to just always have the radio on or always be scrolling it's like it protects us from getting to know ourselves and our wants and our values and what we want in life. When you don't get real with yourself, it's easy to just keep pushing it down like that ball you push underwater. It's eventually going to come up even higher and faster because you haven't dealt with it. So there's peace that can come from exploring what your thoughts are, whether you do it through journaling or asking yourself questions in a recorder, whatever it is for you. Just I would not give up because it really does hold the key to finding the answers you've always wanted. Because when you get quiet enough and when you've gotten all the throw up, all the questions, and you just sit in silence and you say, I'm open, release, I'm open, you're going to get some things are just going to drop into your mind and spirit, and you just start writing them. I sometimes feel like I hear from God that way, and it's things come to me that I never would have thought of myself. So I think we all have that ability to tap into that higher level. For me, it's a higher level, deeper level with God. What is it for you where you're going to tap into that next thing? You got to clear away all the other layers first and get down to the truth of who you are and what your real fears are. And that's where you're going to see your breakthrough.
That's beautiful. Thank you
That
so
was a
much.
really great answer.
Yeah,
Like so
yeah,
practical, and then you kept going. I felt like you kept going through different layers of the answer, and it
yeah.
was really, really substantive. So I will close with a spin-off, pun intended, of Tara's question that she always asks about the book. Given your expertise, what is a film or even a show that you go back to that either is just that's an inspirational message, it tells a great story? Books definitely can have an effect, and we do talk about them on the show as well, but movies definitely can have a huge impact on people. So do you have any recommendations of a favorite, of one that moved you and still does in such a way?
Think of I could think of several. um
Sure,
I could
that'd
think
be great.
um I really resonated with so many TV, as far as a TV show like that stays on point to what I talk about with self-worth. There was a TV show, I think it only lasted maybe 3 seasons, but it was called Drop Dead Diva. And this show, Drop Dead Diva, it was about this gorgeous supermodel, and then she died, and it's a bunch of people died at the same time, and she's in line and in heaven. She's trying to fight to get her life back, and she's like wants to get sent back into her life because she's about to marry. She's engaged to marry the love of her life, the super successful hot guy. And so, whoever in heaven's saying, no, you can't go back. And she pushes the button to go back just at the time someone else was dying. And she gets put back in the body of this fat girl. And she was this like gorgeous supermodel. And she now has to navigate living an entire different life where she's not this gorgeous, entitled, person. And she has to actually rely on her talent and her brains. And she has to figure out how to win back the love of her life now as this fat girl. And it was such a cool series. So that one, I think, resonated with the material in the You Are Worthy book. Another one, just kind of more on a spiritual level. Did you ever see the movie Arrival? It was up for awards a few years ago. It was like Academy Award winning. It was called Arrival. It was really like this thing about it had like an alien thing, and it had like people going back and crossing different timelines like Memento. But I think the thing that struck me in that is she was so focused on trying to figure out what these aliens were saying to her and not understanding, like, do they really want to destroy the earth, or is there some deeper message that we're trying to get out of it? And the one line that really,
of course, Amy Adams trying to
yes,
connect with
Yes,
them.
yes, I forgot the
Yep.
name. I like that one.
the line in that really struck me is she said something, I don't have the exact quote, but she said something about you can't fully know what someone wants or what their needs are until you start dreaming in their language. And so when I think about dreaming in another language, I think of, what are your hopes? What are your dreams? What are your goals? If you were that successful person and you were already at the place you're striving to be and you're going to go to, how would you be dreaming? What would be worrying you? What conversations would you have? What would you be saying no to? If I was trying to really connect with God on a deeper level, it's not until I start dreaming the kind of dreams he would have. So I think getting ourselves out of our current reality where we feel stuck and we feel we're never going to make it to that place, or we feel like we don't understand God's will for our life or whatever it is, when you can start acting as if you're already there, dreaming as if you're there, making decisions as if you're there. Like early on in my acting career, I was taking every job that was offered to me, no matter how terrible the script, no matter how low the pay. And it wasn't until I started acting as if, well, what if I already was Sandra Bullock or Julia Roberts? Would they be saying yes to this schlock? I doubt it. So I would encourage people you start dreaming in the language of where you want to be, dreaming from that point of view of, if you were already there, what would you be putting up with? What would you be saying yes to? What would you be saying no to? Because there's a part in all of us that says, well, I just have to put up with this for a little bit longer, a few more years, then I'll get my raise, a few more years, then I'll get my promotion. Or I just have to put up with this. And you don't. You could act as if you're already at that level and only accept things that someone at that level would accept. So dream from where you want to be.
That's a great closing. That's awesome. I love your answers. Again, have these perfect layers in the delivery. Well, you're an actress, but you're an authentic actress, so delivery is flawless. Thank you so much. Where can people connect with you online? I know that you said that you had some goodies available. Where can they connect with you, and what would they expect to find when they get there?
Yes. So I would encourage everyone who maybe does have questions about their self-worth to download my, I have free training videos, 3 training videos that come out of my You Are Worthy course, and they can get that by going to free gift from coachkat.com. That's cat with a K. freegiftfromcoachkat.com. And I have a whole series of lessons on knowing your worth, knowing it's not tied to anything you do or have done. It's not tied to what other people think of you or your past, and really delving into where your true worth comes from. So go to freegiftfromcoachkat.com and download that. I'm also on Instagram and YouTube and Facebook under Katherine Norland. And I am on TikTok under Kat Norland. So yeah,
Thank
those are
you,
probably.
Kat. Coach Kat, we appreciate it so much. It's been an honor. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Pleasure meeting you. Stay
Thank
blessed.
you. All right, thank you. Take care.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Journey to Your Best Self podcast. We appreciate you being part of this community. For more resources, insights, and ways to connect, head over to youroneself.com. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, including Apple, Spotify, and Overcast. Your support means the world to us. Until next time, keep aligning your mind, body, and spirit, and peace, love, and self-discovery.